Hi, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh,
Well, I
okay.
don't know.
Sorry about that. Would help if I put share screen.
That's great. Hi, Colleen.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Colleen.
Hi,
great.
Sheila. Hi,
Oh,
Dolores.
no.
Hi, Philia.
Hi.
Angie.
Angie.
Gang's
And-
all
Angie's
here.
here too. Okay, I can't
and
see
Elsie.
everybody yet. Oh,
I had a
Good.
message from Norma. She wasn't sure she's going to come on because she just got home around 6 o'clock today after being
Okay.
all night flying.
oh,
Oh, dear. It's in from, oh, dear. Well, that's good. Well, we'll see. We'll certainly welcome anyone that comes in. I'll pay attention to that, Ophelia, and I'll let you go ahead.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone I hope your day has been going really well. And if it not, I hope it gets better. So tonight's presentation will be GBA plus, looking at the GBA plus lens and how it's important in unveiling information and how insights can grow your club. So I'm happy to be here. For those, I think everyone knows me, but for those of you who don't, my name is Ophelia Rigaud. I live in Kingston, Ontario, and I greet you as a settler who lives in Kingston, Ontario, also known as Cataraqui, the city of limestone. It's the home of many different Indigenous people. And this past Indigenous Truth and Reconciliation Day, I had the honor to go for a Truth and Reconciliation walk in Little Cat Creek. And it's a wonderful opportunity to learn. And one of the things that I would like to share as we are all on this journey of reconciliation is that as I was walking, it was an independent walk. It was done by True North Aid. And it was a way of learning history about residential schools and Indigenous history as you went walking in a peaceful environment. And I was honored to walk with a woman came up to me. She is Indigenous and she's a veteran. So we had a great 2.5-hour walk. So I honor that experience and I'm blessed to be on this land. So welcome everyone. So the first thing I want to talk about is before we begin this journey, I want everybody to be on the same page. And we're talking about why it's important to have DEI or diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, right? And that's really what this whole survey was about. It was about to understand our diversity, which refers to the demographics of the club, which is around ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, just basically how your club is made up and what that looks like. And then also looking at equity. And equity refers to basically the fairness of bringing equal access and opportunities based on how some people don't have equal access to opportunities. And this sometimes can be a barrier. So it could simply be that maybe your club is in a space or is being running and there's not an access for a wheelchair. Sometimes, so that's really equity, allowing that everybody can have access to information and services. The other part of DEI is inclusion. And that ensures that everyone in the team or in our club is treated fairly despite of differences. But when we are thinking of all of this with our club, there's this whole sense of belonging. And before I put the definition, I would like to ask you, what do you think belonging is? Or, because sometimes people struggle with that, have you ever felt that you didn't belong? So if somebody asks you what is belonging, what are some words that comes to mind? Anything? Okay, well, I can tell you
Isolation. Sorry.
Isolation, yes. Isolation. We all felt like that for a few years. We felt isolated, right? So belonging really it centers around an employee or a member experience expected in the workplace, right? It's a sense that I feel safe, I feel recognized, I can be myself within a group. So this is all important and it's an important foundation as we understand the survey and why we did it. Now, the big words here is the GBA plus. And so I really want you to understand what that is. Gender-based analysis plus really is looking at gender as the base. And when you are analyzing something, that is looking at the process of how diverse group men, women, and gender diverse people experience policies and programs differently. So the plus is the intersection. So for instance, if I'm walking down the street and I was asked to write down how I feel there are barriers to my safety as I walk at night, my experience as a Black woman might be different than Sheila's experience. It might be different than a male's experience. It might be different than a cisgender person's experience or a child even. For example, as a woman, I will look at different things. Maybe there's not enough street lights, right? So I'm going to look at that. So gender-based analysis is looking at the different characteristics that different intersections of race, of gender, of sexual orientation, socioeconomic status come together, and how this gender-based analysis can look at a situation and look at a problem and see it differently. Why is this important for our club? Because we are in a community and our clubs are diverse. So before I go on, are there any questions about GBA Plus? Okay. So why is it important? We spent all this time in doing the survey, and it's really important because when we have a GBA Plus in BPW Canada, and we put it also with the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion, it helps to improve our bias awareness because it's sort of having a hat. And when we're thinking of our clubs, we're also thinking about what are some of the bias that us as members or as leaders of the club have around our access to our club, around access to information, how we disseminate information, how does our site look? So it helps to improve because right away you're saying, okay, I represent a Caucasian woman. This is my point of view. You might put on a lens or get information from an Indigenous woman, and you put on a different lens and you see things differently. And this is important because it improves the talent of your club. It helps to boost membership. We are in an environment of growth and diversity, and it also boosts engagement. So these are really why we spent all this time with the club and doing the analysis. Most important, it helps to connect and build relationships with like-minded organizations. So having this lens or this view helps you to be at the forefront. It helps you to be a DEI club that's interested in developing DEI. It helps you to connect to like-minded organizations, because if, as you look to build your club, you're thinking, yeah, we want to be more inclusive. So you are going to start to see things differently, maybe start to attend more events, invite more people. So like-minded individuals attract. It's also one of the things, it's a potential for funding for applying for a pitch in your local city or a small grant. In the city of Kingston, I think it's every month, this organization gives away $1,000 to any type of individual or organization, and you pitch, right? So having the knowledge of your club and knowing the relationship and the diversity helps to potentially increase funding. It also creates a sense of psychological safety. As people come and they might feel, I wonder if I will be accepted. Having that lens and knowing that you're creating a welcome environment, people tend to feel safe. And most importantly, it helps to increase the diversity of skills and experiences. So all of this is important as we grow our club, as you grow your club, as the club is growing, as you expand your knowledge and information. So having a diverse membership helps with better performance of the club, as I said. However, there are some pillars that I want to get involved in, introduce you to, that's also essential before you grow. So it's the foundation. We can't grow the club without looking at these foundations. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that as you start to implement the information that we pulled together, and then as I go through the report. Okay. So I'm going to review this is the survey that we did for all the clubs across Canada. And this is just some general information that was reported to the BPW board a while ago. And then I'm going to get into a sample individual club report. Okay. So I feel that's important. We look at the overall. I'm not going to get into details. It's all already posted, but I just want to give you an understanding because I know for some of you it's been a while, but I'm just going to give you some of the information that was generally collected. So the main thing that we did with the club report is when we administered it, 77 people completed the survey. And this was generally the age range in French and English. And it shows here the age range. Most of the individuals were between 56 to 65. So this gives you an idea when you look at the overall survey that our club's membership is more mature. The other aspect that we looked at when we were talking about the club was about the experience of BPW members. And this was the English responders. So the largest areas was in business, small business or SMEs. That wasn't surprising that most people came from that category of business. In our general Canadian population, most women work in healthcare, then in education, and then in accommodation services. And all that could simply be different forms of small to medium-sized businesses. And please stop me if you have any questions. Sheila can monitor the chat if you want to put it there, or just put your mic on and let me know. But there will be a time for questions and answer. Just wanted to put that out there. And this is the French responders. For these individuals, so there was a little bit different for the individuals responding in French. They were about 50% were business or corporate, and business and small was about 25%. Why is this important? It's important to know who your members are and what areas that they are representing, because it's also potential for growth. To outreach to that type of organization, that type of industry. Or for example, if you said, you know what, we really need to focus a lot on education because we really don't have a lot of people in that field. So that's how you would utilize some of the statistics, and we'll get a little bit more there. So this talks about gender identity. Both English and French, most people identify cisgender female. A couple identified in English as two-spirit, and some people identified as choosing not to. Just a little bit of the statistics for the Canadian population is 1 in 300 people in Canada, age 15 and older, are transgender or non-binary, which is a small percentage. Okay. And Sheila's put in the chat where you can find the full report. Oops, sorry, let me go back. And around disability, around 22% of English speakers and 20% of all members identified as having a disability. And it's pretty much consistent with the Canadian statistics, which is about 22%. Right? Some of the general questions that was asked in the club is that I can comfortably talk about my social and cultural background within the club. And it was very high. Most people felt that they could talk about their social and cultural background within the club. The leadership members of my club is committed, and 72, and then in French was 63. So it's pretty high. One of the things that when we look at the statistics and we see is that around diversity in some clubs, it's pretty much homogeneous or pretty much, so that could also be a contributing factor why people, because if you are in a club and it's most people look like you feel, have the same experience, you're naturally going to be comfortable in talking about it. But this, I think, is a great statistics that people feel safe and comfortable in talking about their cultural background. This is the part that I found most interesting. There was such great participation, and people said that what they really wanted around the ideas, which for ideas for us starts for inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. And it was all in the 80s that people really want, and people who responded in the English, 85% wanted to find out about equity and wanted to learn more about equity. And having this kind of statistics is really important because they took the time, they answered, and that could be even one of the ways that you improve club around ideas, around diversity and equity is offering a workshop about what is equity. It could be as simple as that. Well, how does equity look different than equality, and how does it relate to diversity and inclusion? So having this information and when we go into the report is really important because you get an understanding of what your members are interested in. And this is just a further breakdown of where people were really interested in the fine minutia and looking at what they want to hear. For the English responders, the biggest one was unconscious myths and bias. And I thought that was really interesting because really when you're doing EDI work, the biggest part of it is discovering our own myths and our own biases. Another big area for the English speaking was about newcomer and migrants, right? About understanding their experience. For the French, 100% wanted to learn about unconscious bias. And another big area for the French responders was inclusive policies, right? So this is where the information comes from. And it's a great way to go to create a plan and say, okay, my members really want to hear about that. What's the number one thing they would like to hear about? And that's where you put on a workshop where you bring in a speaker and you can take maybe a year and just go through each one of them when you have a workshop and bring in an expert or see if there's an expert within your membership. That's one of the best ways of creating this by pulling information from your membership. Angie?
It was actually, oh, am I mute? No. I have
No,
a
you're fine.
question. Why do you break it out by language? Like when I'm looking at all these, I guess the results, I'm very curious why we decided to look at the English versus the French. So I would think that you would see a lot of similarities across the two. I'm just more curious.
Because with part of it is because of the funding we needed to provide it in the official language. So people decided to fill out the survey and that's how they selected it.
So it's really just how the survey went out versus combining the results.
Yes.
Okay.
And I
what's
think
interesting too, though, I feel is that there were some definite differences.
Yeah, there were definitely differences
around the topics of or like even the mix, like much more. We English speaking members are much more in SMEs, whereas in Quebec or in the French
they were much more
they were very corporate. So a really just definite. So there's some distinction between the different groups within BPW Canada.
And most of I would say 99% of the French responders are from Quebec. I think we had maybe one or two that were from other provinces. So as Francophones, I think it's important to know that information.
Okay. I was just curious. Thank you.
That's a great question. So what I've done is that you will get a PDF version of your report. This is just a sample report. So when you get it, you're not like, what is this? And I just broke it down in picture format that it's on the PowerPoint that you can see it, and I'll go through it with you, but you will get a PDF form. So the first part of the report is basically introducing, you would have your club name, and then it would have, oops, sorry, going too fast here. Just need to move this up here just a second. So you will see on the top part of when you get the report on page 1 is the participation rate, percentage of report members who did this. So this is a sample one. So on this form, it's 5 out of 10. You're shaking your head? I can't hear you, Sheila. You're muted.
Just wondering, the sample actually form, that's not the sample form. That's an older form. I don't know what that one is. Can you pull up the one that we sent? It might, because it'll give a better sense of some of the instruction that they're going to get. Yeah, or have you got it there? I've got it here. I can show it and you can speak to it if you want,
Okay.
if you can't.
I have it, and I don't know if it's going to share. I'm just having problems sharing this again. Can you make it bigger?
I'm trying, I don't even see it.
I see it on my screen. I think. Does people see a report that says BPW Canada?
Yeah.
Sample, there. Okay, now do you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is it big enough?
Yep, that's good.
Okay, sorry. Okay, just because it has some of the other information, I just thought I know I just sent that to you, so.
So you will see the participation rate. And as I said, this is a sample report about how many people completed the report for your club. Then you will get about the demographics, which is the member age range. And it will show here in the second box about, for example, this one is on people under 35, that was 6%, and so forth. And then you will see the years of service. So these were all the questions that we asked that we pulled together. And you will see, for example, in this club, people who were in the club for 1 to 5 years were 43%, 6 to 15, etc. So that's what the first part. And then you will show about language and the role mix, which is how many people are executive, how many people are members. And then we will have a recommendation or consideration based on what the above information has said. So here we have a mix of executive and members. We have, based on the respondent data, there's an opportunity to intentionally connect to ages under 35. So these are some of the recommendation. We also encourage you to use the GBA plus. So that's the core structure of the report. The next part talks about diversity and representation. So we talk about gender, we talk about the club, the community, and then the nation, which would be in Canada-wide. So it's just giving you a comparison of where in Canada, like for instance, in this club report, cisgender female is 92%. In the nation, cisgender women is 50.83%. So it gives you a comparison, because just having your own statistics doesn't give you an idea of how to grow and where exactly you want to do. In regards to Indigenous, you also have the same information under your club, then again in the community. And for Indigenous population, Canada-wide, that is people identified as being Indigenous, like 9.4% of the population in Canada is Indigenous. And those people who chose to say another as a single identity will be like Métis, First Nations, or Inuit. Okay. And then we have race, Caucasian, 96, and then it goes on basically in your community and in the nation. Then we go to ability. And then into your sector mix, which that's basically the industry sectors that people have identified. So the first column is actually the report. Second is the community. And then we look at the top of where Canadians worked in top sectors. And we compare that as close as possible to the answers that we have within the survey, okay? And then we'll talk about, have some specific recommendations for your club about that and how to improve that. So it could simply be like, Sheila can go back up. I can just give a quick example here. So no, too far, just under the industry, sorry.
Oh, okay.
So for here, if you, let's say you wanted to reach more labor or trade unions, that could be something you could, look at and see, oh, we don't have as much, but it's higher. Because the idea is that you want your club as close as possible to reflect your community and the nation, right? Okay, we can go down. So here's where we have the member feedback and comments. So this is talking, these were the other sections of the report, which is asking about, like, as I mentioned quickly in the other thing, part of the presentation is diversity and belonging. I can comfortably talk about my social and cultural background. We put the stats in the second column, and then we have some recommendations and considerations. All right, as I said, and that's to help you and to guide you around that. Then the question 12 was diversity and belonging, the leadership, have the percentage, and then we have some recommendations as well. And then the rest of the 13 to 16 is around perceptions and rating. And we ask people to rate around the interest in improving IDEA, which is inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. And that would be simply here in the box, and it would be rated. Does your club have a strategy to increase? And this is also a good question to look at, because if it's high, yes, that's really great. But if people say I don't know and no, it's almost, you need to combine the no and the I don't know, so people are not sure. So that's could mean that they don't know where to find it, they don't know where it exists. So that's important information to consider. And another thing that will help you to expand and give you more information in this report, as I said before, is the topics that your club members are really interested in. In this report, it's unconscious myth, right? So right there, you will have specifically what your club is interested in. And at the bottom, it's the recommendation. We're pulling all of this information together and giving you in a paragraph form of what you can do with the information that's on the statistics. Because statistics are all numbers, but it's important to look at it in a way and to realize that this is about people. This is about people who have decided to take the survey, and it gives you a good input, an umbrella input about what your club looks like around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And here is where people, and they took the time to offer their feedback. What does ideas mean to you? And this, they wrote it down. And some of the things is accepting people. Some people talk about race and gender, inclusion of all people. This is really great because it gives you an idea in a practical way, not a technical term, but a practical way of how people understand these concepts. Question 20 is, what recommendations do you have for your club to partner with moving forward? And once again, these are the responses that we have here. Cross-cultural learning give you some more insight. And then another section is about additional thoughts that people had. And this section is good for future references. At the bottom of the report, we're talking about specific resources and recommendations that you can go to help you to put this all together. So it's about specifically get to know your community. Here are some links that's in your community from the idea solution. We have it in French and English. 4 actions to implement inclusive community outreach, once again in French and English. And understanding racism terms and definitions, we have it there. So these are the foundations in helping you on your journey and how to create a community of belonging. And this takes you to the step 6 of our hiring solution. And the one thing I want to point out is that a lot of the work that's done around EDI is around in a business around hiring. I know that the membership in a club, we're not hiring people, but they are joining. You're thinking many of the same practices and the way that we were recruiting is very similar. That if you are a volunteer organization or a membership organization. So I just want to put that out there, that if you see the word hiring, you say, well, we're not hiring, we're recruiting. It's the same thing, because people look at, if you think about it, being a BPW club membership is a role. Being a member is a role. There's job descriptions, there's positions descriptions. So I just wanted to pull that out there. And then there's specific references for the club. So if it's specific things that within that you can get some statistics or census specific for your club location. And then we have some references for Canada. So that's my spiel. And now I want to open the floor for you to ask questions.
Colleen?
Colleen?
Oh. Get it. Maybe not.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
Sorry about that. Okay. Thank you for that summary, Ophelia. That was really, really good. I quite enjoyed it. And as I was listening to this information, I was thinking, okay, so we've got this meeting for advocacy coming up and resolutions coming up at the end of October 23rd, I guess it is. And I'm thinking, what does this mean for the people that would be attending? And I thought it was kind of interesting that we've got, was it just about a quarter of the people that are interested in policy?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, because we say that that's what our resolutions are kind of targeting. That's what we're here to do, is we're a policy influencing organization at the highest, in the federal government. So that right away takes out a big chunk of people that really that isn't their primary focus. So I find that interesting. I also found it interesting that our membership reflects about 20-some% of our members are living with a disability.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear very many, it doesn't come up very much.
Well, I also think that, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's good. I wanted to those are just sort of some loose observations.
So one of the things in working with people with disabilities for many years is that they may not share it in public. A lot of it is invisible, but they will share it if asked confidentially. That's why when we did the report, sometimes you might think, well, I didn't know my club, like let's say you have a high rate of disability within your club and you're thinking, well, I didn't know that, because sometimes we're only thinking of the visible disability of someone who's blind, someone who's in a wheelchair, but a lot of the disabilities is invisible: mental health, chronic pain, etc. So, that's why when we looked at the club report and doing DEI, and as everyone knows, it's having that confidential, you get the authentic answers, and there's always some surprises. Karen, Karen, you have a question?
Yeah, so I know Sheila had mentioned kind of at the beginning about completing ongoing surveys. So, what's being done about that, you know, so we've done this with everybody as it was, whatever the survey date was, I can't remember. But we want, oh, thank you. I knew it was a while ago. But we want new members to be doing it well as well, so we can keep on with this. So what's been happening with that, and what analysis was be that, and the clubs know about that?
They don't, nobody knows about it at all yet. You know, today was to be, you know, we had hoped that the clubs, particularly, you know, when we have, I think it's, I didn't have it in front of me, but 17 clubs participated in the survey. So 17 out of the 21 or 20 clubs participated in the survey. 3 of those clubs had a participation rate of 50% to 75%. The remaining clubs had a participation rate, I think it's 12 of, well, take away, that's total, including those 3. 12 clubs had a participation rate of just 20%. A minimum 20% or more. So, and so then there are the remaining club who participated only had like 1 member or 2 members, which you can't do a report for, right? In terms of stats. So we were able to do reports for 12 clubs that had a 20% or better report. When that club gets that, it's going to show them, you know, that what their percentage was, like 2 out of 12 or 10, not 2 out of 12, it would be 6 out of 12 to get their, no, that'd be 50%, sorry. But it could be 2 out of 12 to give them that percentage of 20%. And when they get that, the first thing that is important for clubs to see when they're looking at the report is that the findings in these reports, as Ophelia has indicated too, are reflection of the participation rate, right? You need to pay attention to the participation rate. And so you don't go off making a whole bunch of judgments or decisions about stuff if you've got 20% only. I said, now is where you need to now, this is the baseline. So it's a great baseline. We had a really good baseline survey. You know, we had good, enough to have some really good start, but that was only the baseline. Now the ongoing, forever going, the GBA plus BPW survey is now available, and it's available at this location. And all clubs and all members who did not participate in the baseline survey now need to participate in the real survey. We get to carry over the baseline data over. Yeah, you know, people who already did it don't have to do it again, but people who have not participated in the survey you need to ask them to do it. So now clubs need to say, okay, oh, so I'm going to get something really tangible out of my club participating in this, and it's going to give me something to work with. So the idea is that you will now want to move forward, ask to engage the members who did not participate in the baseline survey. And moving forward, every single new member needs to be given this link and asked to complete the survey as part of your new membership process. So that's how, Karen, how we will continue to keep the data live. But we have to do this big push now to get clubs to have their members actually complete, so they get a better percentage rate. And they can then actually have more meaningful data. It's a good start, but this is the baseline. And then that also shows us good as well in terms of the baseline. Then we can then measure moving forward our improvement in our diversity over time, and the actions that they're taking when they engage in their strategy, develop their strategy based on this feedback.
So
sorry. Yep.
So one of the things that Sheila just extended when she shared about the, we talked about that in the report. One of the resources was our inclusive hiring practice. And why I want to mention that again is that, you know, when a company has decided to see what their diversity and do one of these types of surveys, they continue, right? commitment to DEI and to expanding diversity is ongoing. So we have the base structure, Sheila says. So now it's sort of, this should be, I encourage all the clubs that this is part of their onboarding of a new member, of members who haven't completed, because the only way that you're going to know your club is getting to know your club. And one of the things that I just want to, there's this sort of a second part to it, because part of this is understanding a little bit about the next steps, and I'll just give you a little bit more information just here. So one of the things that I really want to share is that one of the things when we are having anything new is that there is a sense of resistance, right? And that might be, I don't know, but there's actually, when we are implementing EDI, people have this fear of change. What does this mean? I don't know, I'm uncomfortable. It's this consciousness. That's why we're talking all about bias. Then it's like, oh my goodness, okay, I feel really good, right? This feels really good. And we're doing it to feel good because we feel we have to do it because everybody else is doing it. And then there's this sense of reason-based. We need to do it because we're told to do it. We have to do it. It's not really committed. Where you want to get your club is the sense of wisdom. We are doing this because we've learned from our members. We have wisdom from our members. We understand their diversity. And then the highest level of getting through is a service base. We're doing this and we are a club because this is part of our service. This is part of our identity. It starts to grow there. None of these 5 levels are right or wrong. It's just a reality that each club is going to be at a certain space, and there might be some resistance, and that could also contribute why some members didn't complete the survey. They didn't understand, right? So it's important to understand that there's these 5 levels of when change happens. One of the things that, and this is just summarizing all the things that we've said, is that what is your why? And that helps you with the resistance, is talking to your members and finding out the why. But you already know the why because they filled out the report. They already told you that. They want to know more about ideas and what is ideas. So part of this in creating an EDI plan is, what is your why? The commitment from leaders, right? EDI is everybody's responsibility, but as a leader, you're leading, right? So it's looking at the strategies, it's looking at the recommendations that we have set in the report. And as a leader from BPW Canada to BPW Ontario to the club leadership, is this commitment to this process. And it could simply be, we need to commit that we are going to onboard every new member that comes in the club and make sure that they take the survey, and anybody who does it. That could be the first level of commitment. And then looking at evaluate, like Karen was saying, getting the report, right, through the process of, BPW Canada, as more information comes in, how often is that going to be done? Like in a year from now, in 2 years, or it's this ongoing commitment of keeping track of the information. And then it's a commitment to connecting with the community, right? Taking that information like we have in the report. It's great to know us and saying, okay, we in Canada, in our area, I'm just giving you an idea. In our area, for example, there's 40% Indigenous people, but our club only has 1%. That could be an area that you might want to grow. So it's taking the information that you have about your club, bringing it up, knowing the why, committing as a leaders, ongoing evaluation and progress, and then having a community commitment to build your community. And here's just some 5 action steps that I just need to move this out of the way because I can't see, sorry. I would say that really look at what you can do and, pick 1 to 3 areas of the report that you can grow and that you can expand on. Look at your biases and prepare some intentional outreach plan and craft inclusive community, building of community of relationships. All of this is done in the report. And a big part of it that this is bringing these 5 action plans is really the report and looking at the recommendations and picking one of the recommendations and starting with that. I really believe in the power of one, which is picking one idea, one concept. So if that idea is from leaders, we say, you know, it might seem overwhelming. Let's commit for the next year that we're going to have a plan that everybody that comes into your club, a new member, does the report. What that does involves your members, involves your membership committee, involves the outreach committee, involves your leaders, and then you have a plan. You're doing that. And what that does, it shows to new people the club is committed to equity and diversity. So one action can actually cover so many different areas. So I don't know, this is the time where BPW Canada, if they have anything that they would like to say, or have any questions, can put it in the chat or ask me.
I don't think, it doesn't look like Shannon's been able to get in to the call because she was going to share a little bit about what BPW Canada membership chair and committee sort of is committing to, which is like promoting and well, you had asked Karen what was sort of next from that standpoint, and she'd indicated the follow-up from this session. This recording, this event, Zoom will be recorded. The full report's already there. A sample report will get posted. We'll make sure it's cleaned and that there's no references to anything. We pulled a few things from different reports for it, but we'll post that. But that gets posted, and then the clubs actually all get their reports, and they should be going to the president or the club president, which of course that's not us. That's for you, Karen, and the executive of BPW Canada and membership chair to issue to the appropriate people to make sure that they get their report, because it's confidential and it's to that club. So however that's going to be handled, I don't know. But that I know was one thing that was in our last discussion with Shan, was that they would do that, and then as the new year starts, to send out reminders around making sure your membership incorporates this into your membership form, that there is the link to the survey in the form. Those were a couple of things. Anything else that you can remember, Ophelia, from Shannon's?
A big part was making sure that it's attached to the form and it's automatic, and that you're mentioning it also mentioning it at your meetings when you're recruiting. And I think it's important. She also talked about just promoting it in as different events, in the sense of maybe there's another something like this that we invite leadership to, and something similar like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the biggest part of this is that in talking to Shannon, there's a commitment from BPW Canada to have this ongoing, right? That's the whole reason, part of the ideas, but the GBA plus. So that's the leadership commitment in doing that. But that goes down to the individual clubs and having that commitment and finding a way that works for the club. And as I can't emphasize enough, is just think about it as onboarding. It's sort of like this person is new, they fill out all the forms of who they are, and they also complete the survey. Colleen.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Lots of ideas running through my head here, but I'm really curious, as I know, I think I like that context. We've got to realize that this is just our baseline, and we need to get more widespread feedback to really understand what's going on in our clubs. But I'm just wondering, especially, and Sheila and Doris, I invite you to respond as well. What kind of came up in your minds as areas, as what are the implications of all of this for how we're approaching our advocacy and resolutions?
You mean the statistics?
Yeah, like the results of this survey, what would you say, like, was there something when you looked at the results of this survey and you thought about BPW Canada and how we're structured and looking at our approach to advocacy and resolutions, what was top of your mind?
Well, for me, I looked at it from the lens of being a BIPOC woman. So that's how I looked at it, right? Looking at that. But also I looked from the lens of the interest of what people are interested in learning more about, right? They really want to learn more about unconscious bias, right? So if you look at it, you can also look at it from the sense if your club is really interested in learning more about migrants, most likely they want to have advocacy around that area, right? So that's another way to interpret the club information. So I find what people are interested in learning more about, that translates is what they're passionate about. And what people are passionate about is also what they want to have a cause around, right? So that's another way of interpreting the cause. So for instance, a lot of the clubs, a big part of that was around unconscious bias. Another big area was around safe communities and culture, right? So thinking about safe communities, it's asking yourself, what does a safe community mean? And then if you put on your gender-based analysis cap, what does a safe community mean for women? What does a safe community mean for Indigenous women? If you, let's say you're in a community that has a high Indigenous population, that's going to look different and that advocacy might be different. So I think it's looking at the statistics and not just saying, well, these are what our people are interested in. It's also ask the same questions. These are the topics that our people are passionate about. These are the things that people are passionate in learning more about. These are the areas that people are passionate in being more committed to. So I think that put the layer of, an advocacy that will also help as well.
Thank you.
I think that doing this just opens up the minds to the broad potential for the organization, and the fact that we do recognize that there are differences, but we're opening our minds to accepting that, and that there is something for everyone in this organization.
Yeah, and I look at it this way. This was a big commitment, energy-wise, resource-wise. It was a big undertaking. And when an organization decides to do this baseline study, before you really see the results or, you start to see changes in DEI and all of that, it takes about 3 to 5 years, right? Because the first year is just, oh my goodness, we don't know what to do. And it's sort of like when I was talking about that fear base. If you think about the survey right now, it's that fear base, and you want to think about it that it might take 1 year at a time to move up to that service base and that understanding. It's not that you're not providing service, but this is the commitment to saying, we want to understand the diversity of our club. We want our clubs to be more equitable. And that's the first step in creating community of belonging. If you don't ask those questions, you just assume, and the status quo always goes on. So how I see it is that BPW Canada has said, we want to be more reflective. We want our club to grow. We don't want to be left behind, because a lot of other membership clubs over the pandemic has died out because they weren't reflective of their community, and people outside of the community says, I need to see myself in a club before I commit to being in that club. And this is the way that you help people to see themselves. If you don't know who's in the club, then you're only going to be marketing and promoting the members that are already there. So just going back to the statistics, we have statistics where people are in the club for a certain number of years, looking at that and saying, well, most of our members have been here 10 years plus, but we're not getting newer members. So that's where the growth is, right? It's looking at layer upon layer of growth and looking at it and saying, well, in the Canadian population, millennials are growing more, and we really need to kind of look at how we're going to attract millennials, a younger generation, because as all clubs, we have to grow. And what are they interested in? They're most likely going to be interested in diversity and inclusion. So that's how I see this organic baseline growing. So if this was done a year from now, again, it could be another push every year. You do it, and then you get more statistics, right? And you get to see what the club's true makeup is.
And I also like the intentionally looking outside of our membership for the gaps that we have. And then once we do that, we can do advocacy that's more meaningful to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you want your community, the whole idea, I always tell this, DEI sounds so complicated, but at the end result is about making people feel that they belong, and you want to reflect your community. So for example, your community might be predominantly Caucasian, but in that Caucasian, there's just what is the diversity, right? So it's looking at that, because diversity is not just about race, it's about different aspects. So that's why we gave you what your community looks like, and then a reflection with what the nation is.
Yeah. I mean, I think you've covered all the bases for giving a clear understanding of the potential of this. And I give kudos to BPW Canada for saying, yes, let's do this. Let's understand who we are. It's not easy. And, putting together the survey and determining what to ask and how to ask. And then we can testify, pulling the stats together and making sense of those is not easy either. And even stats looking at all the way they do not stats, community does stats differently. So we've had to learn and work with that. So it's a learning experience for us all, but it's one that we can all grow together with. And ultimately, it's, as Ophelia says, it's about making sure that we are creating that space of belonging for all members, and equity and access and opportunity for all members, so that members who join feel that they can become the club president. They can become, the provincial president, the national president, the international, or anything and everything in between. That it's a welcoming, open community for everyone and anybody who wants to make a difference in their community. So I think the potential is there. So when you ask that question, that's what I was thinking, Colleen, is it's really about inclusion, diversity, equity, and access within the club, by knowing who we are, as Ophelia says, and then making the determination is, do we reflect our community? And if we don't, can we make, and it's about relationship building, understanding where that gap is, and then using those tools and resources at the end for that maybe set for building relationships in the community, for hiring practices or recruitment. But they also are about, for us, building our network and building our membership and recruiting our members. So it all applies. So that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, because it's important, as we say, representation matters. So people need, the more you represent people and they see themselves in the club or some aspect, then membership will increase. Karen, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I do. I think, when you're looking at the numbers of the respondents, I mean, some probably didn't respond because they didn't read the email. Some may not have wanted to respond for whatever decision, but I think it's important for clubs to perhaps have a meeting, make sure their members are aware of why it's so important to do the survey, and to have a laptop available for them to take the however many minutes to go through and do the survey, particularly for new people. They do the application, and we're so happy to have a new member, but we don't go that next step and say, this is part of our process. It was mentioned about the onboarding and having it part of the application. But, here you go, here's my laptop, take 5 minutes, and here's the link to the survey, and have them do it. So it really is important for the clubs to get on board with this and give that time to their members right there at the meeting. 5 minutes, here you go, do the survey, then you don't have to worry about it when you go home. So I'm just throwing.
Or you can have a survey party.
Yeah, there you go.
Once a year, twice a year, have a survey party, and everybody comes in. And if you haven't done it, and there's a prize, I don't know, but make it fun, and have people, if people, some of the club members can bring their laptops, so people, it's just about access of people, because sometimes people, as Karen says, forget. It's not they don't want to, but the sooner that they sign up and they have that link and it's just part of the process, and they get it done.
And even a Zoom party, right? So that that
party.
people, you could do it and everyone can together and everyone can open it up and do it on their own, like right there on the spot, and you have your discussions or whatever, but they can just get it done. So those who haven't done it, so have a way to kind of make it fun, get the surveys completed. And clubs are going to be, we have a report that tells what the percentages the members are and what percentage have completed. And so clubs, and that is going to be out there and put in front of clubs so that they could see the clubs that don't have the membership engaged in it, then getting everybody, encouraging them to get people on board and to get the survey completed, so that at least you can have at least a 50%, even if you get a 50%. I'm saying shoot for, we had said 80% was the number. Then you actually got to get this a badge that you could put on your social media and in your website that says we're 100% committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. And there's this badge that you get to put on your website. And we have one club that's at 75, because we'd said 80%. And then you get that badge. So we've got some work to do to get our clubs up there and getting that number, so that we can actually have something that is tangible for them. And if you do a big push like that, and we see a 20-30%, so you have a 20% number, and it goes up to now the club has 50%, we'll run another report for you. So. We're not going to run a report for another 2 people, another 3 people, another 4 people, but we will have a new report done when there is a significant first, where you're going to get some more truly changing data.
Okay, so we have some questions. Angie, then Anne, and then Colleen.
Hi, it was me again.
Oh, yeah.
It's Ashley.
Hey, Ashley.
Survey, I filled it out on my computer when I did it, but is it friendly, like phone friendly, or does it have to be done on like a tablet or computer?
It can be done either. The one thing that we suggest that if you started on the phone, you complete it on the phone. If you started on the tablet, you do it on the tablet. So it's through SurveyMonkey. So it's phone friendly and laptop friendly.
So on that note, I think a survey party, or whatever you want to call it, would actually make a lot of sense. You could tack it onto your AGM or something to that effect, and just encourage people to do it right on the spot. If you fill it out, enter a draw to win something. I don't know. There probably be ways you could work it right into a meeting.
Yeah, you can have a QR code and people just
QR code,
do the thing. Even if it's on Zoom, you have the QR code on your screen and people just put their phone in. For some people still need the link, right? Because sometimes it just doesn't work. So yeah, that's a great idea.
I couldn't remember where the survey was hosted. So yeah, SurveyMonkey could be done on phones, because not everybody, of course, but the majority of people have cell phones with them. So that would probably be the easiest way to get people to do it on the spot.
Great idea. Love it.
Yeah.
Anne?
Anne.
Hi. Great.
You're muted again. There you go. You just
okay. There you are. You're good.
Don't touch. You're good.
Anyway, great job. This is amazing. I'm really excited about this. When are you rolling it out to the clubs?
Yes. I think what was the date that we were thinking about? I think it was a week and a half. We were thinking of getting it 2 weeks. The week before, what's the date? I'm looking. Our heads are kind of focused on October 18th these days, and so for the event in Montreal.
And 2 weeks is the 17th.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think we were
15th. I think we were trying to see if we could get them off to clubs by the 15th.
Okay, that's good. And how often will the results be refreshed so that, I mean, if we're doing it ongoing?
Yes,
So
Yep.
I think as Sheila says, it would be a significant change in your club, right? So if, let's say, for example, you have 30 members and 10 completed it, and then in 3 months, only 3 more people completed. I think that's going to have to be, it has to be something significant to really change the statistics.
to have us run another report. But
Yeah.
Juliana, during the survey launch, she checked it weekly. We won't do that, but we'll probably check it quarterly. But we might do a bunch. We might do if we launch this, get them out to clubs on the 15th, then in November we'll maybe do another run and see whether clubs have picked it up and are doing it, and see what the numbers chart, because she runs it, and then we have a change for what our stats are for the numbers, and we can then issue that out. So to the clubs, and so the membership chair can do this, Shannon could do this, to the clubs, and they will know where they stand, if there's been an increase, and if there isn't, if she sees a major shift, like as I say, if it goes from 10% up to 30%, then that's you get a report because you didn't have one before. But if you anyone that's 20% now, or a little bit above or whatever, if they go another, get another major boost, then we would actually do another report. But we would probably, I would say she'll do it, we'll do a look at it in a month after the push. When we push it out, we'll see what happens in a month. We'll see whether there's any push, any change. But that won't change the reports necessarily, but we'll just let you know the status. And then but I would think ongoing, you're probably looking at about a quarterly basis.
Okay. We're having a joint board and president meeting on October the 16th. So I'll just let people know that it's coming. And if there's any questions, to contact me and I'll filter it on to somebody.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. And actually, if we issue them on the 15th, if that's, then they will be issued, and you'll have the opportunity to let the clubs know that they, like the club presidents should be getting it should have that. And then you say, hey, you might have got this and they didn't know what it was. This is what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Can someone CC me when they do go out, just so I know that they went out? I don't need to see other club reports, but if they could just let me know that they went out.
Yeah, we'll have to, the process for the issue of the confidential club reports, the process for that hasn't been discussed with Shan, but we will follow up with her and get that sorted out, and then make sure that, in your case, provincial presidents are informed that these have been gone out, or issued out.
Excellent. Very exciting.
Okay.
Colleen?
Yes, I was just thinking that like how important it would be to maybe for us to support the club as they go through these surveys. I'm not sure that all of the clubs will have the language and the perspective, and I think it's just related to their desire to learn more about their unconscious biases, and people are a little timid sometimes to step into this. So I think that as much as we can support them and in their interpretation of this, it would be a really good opportunity.
For sure. And the video, the recording of this, where we talk about the report itself, whether we decide to do something that's more maybe a specific video towards that, to help, that might help. But also I know Toby Toth from Hastings, Prince Edward, had offered to offer some assistance to clubs if they get the report and they want to talk about what to do with it and how to do it. She's had indicated that she has done some sessions with some things and might step in and offer that in some ways. So
great.
So there's that as a follow-up, but also everyone who's got exposure to it can jump in and support.
Great work. Thank you.
Are there any more questions?
Looks like Don't see any more hands.
No. And just to extend on what Colleen was saying is that the commitment will come from the leaders, from, leaders in BPW Canada. They're committed because they've done that, leaders in BPW Ontario. And then to look and see what clubs aren't committed, and commitment can look, and as I said, it could be fear. Maybe they're not doing the surveys haven't changed. It's intentionally reaching out to those clubs who maybe haven't filled out the survey and saying, how can we support you? And providing that information that way. Okay, so there are no more questions. You want to have anything else to share, Sheila?
I don't think so. I can't seem to find sharing, so I don't know whether you're sharing your screen or not anymore. Or...
You're definitely sharing your screen.
Oh, I'm sharing my screen.
Your
Yeah.
beautiful,
Your beautiful
grandchildren,
family.
your family.
Nice.
Oh, there it
They're
is. I
definitely
can
not
find
my
it.
family. They're
Oh, yeah,
beautiful.
never.
They're definitely not mine.
And so what I will do, if I can see where it is up there, I will stop the recording.